Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Thank you as always everybody for your suggestions. I'm picking now the second one for my series here, and as always the reason why I love doing these particular videos is because I come across some of the most fascinating, original, interesting cryptids or monsters out there, and I love sharing them with everybody here. Case in point is this one that I'm about to talk about. The reason why I picked this particular cryptid is because it instantly reminded me of one of the past cryptids that I've talked about. If you know which one I'm talking about when it comes to the slide rock bolter, it's one of my not earlier videos in my series, but it's one of the ones in the middle. If you have a chance, check it out, and after you see this particular video, because then you'll see how synonymous the two are to one another, in that they've almost fallen into that tall tale sort of storyline where it's something where people describe seeing something so abnormal, so weird, so strange, so bizarre, that it takes on a life of its own, and they pass these stories on through the years, through generations. And with this particular cryptid, it absolutely falls into that realm. So again, as soon as you finish this one, check out my other video that I did in the past called the Slide Rock Bolter, and you'll be again surprised by how similar these two cryptids are in their tall tale originality. So this particular cryptid, again, very, very fascinating. Glad to report it for it here. It's called the Funeral Mountain Terrashot. Again, the Funeral Mountain Terrashot. And just based on the picture you're seeing now, you'll know exactly why I picked this creature. Who knew that there was something like this out there in the world right now? It probably is out there in the world right now. Maybe it's gone, but at least sometime in the past, here in America, presumably sometime in, let's say, the 1800s, when the colonies, everything was still being settled upon, maybe even earlier than that, but nothing unfortunately later that I can come up with. But in any case, during that time period, during the Wild West era, apparently there were these creatures, these casket-looking creatures, roaming the desert valley here in America. Very, very fascinating stuff. So again, you would have to go back a good while, again, whenever civilization, the colonies were essentially trying to create some sort of civilization throughout the new land, throughout the new frontier here in America. You would have to go specifically towards the California area, and that's why it gets its name, the Funeral Mountain Terrashot, because where this particular creature was found is near the Funeral Mountains themselves. I had to look up the Funeral Mountains. Never heard of them before, but apparently they are near Death Valley, and they have a very large, probably about 100 miles or so range when it comes to their length. So they're part of the Death Valley, and they're part of the range of mountains that are there. And they're probably called the Funeral Mountains because anybody who tries to go across this barren desert wasteland over the course of, let's say, especially a summer week or so, it's your funeral. So that's probably why that's why they call it there, because too many people have tried to cross it in the past, only to find the results are the worst case possible. So, but yeah, the Funeral Mountain Terrashot. You'll see its description here. The image tells you exactly what it is. It's a casket-like body, a cryptid that has something that resembles a casket. It measures about 6 to 8 feet long, and it looks like the casket itself is more of like a shell. So it's not soft to the touch when it comes to its casket-like body. It's more like a tortoise or more like a turtle, where if you were to touch it, it would have a very hard feeling towards it. And because of the unusual way that its body is located, the way its body is formed, even then it's a detriment to its own ability to just walk, because apparently those that have been able to see this very unique cryptid say that when it walks, it actually sways from side to side, because the top portion of its body is so either heavy from the hard material that it's made of, or again the shape of it is just so unorthodox. It's nothing compared to the long legs that hold it underneath, that the body just naturally sways back and forth, which makes sense because again, if you look at something like a turtle, It purposefully has short, stumpy legs because of its large tortoise or large turtle-like shell. If it had longer legs, longer skinny legs on there, then you would have the weight on top acting like a pendulum of sorts, and it would be too much weight. It would be going to the left, going to the side, and it would not be something that would be to advantage to the tortoise. But sure enough, this particular cryptid, however nature decided, it created this creature as is, even with all its faults on there. So again, it was found at the Funeral Mountain Range there near Death Valley in California, and some of the first people that come across it actually were Mormon immigrants. They were going to around that mountain range, probably either going to a city or they were going to try to settle something themselves, some kind of civilization, some kind of colony. And that's when they witnessed this creature. Now, the sight alone of this creature is bizarre, but how this creature acts itself is even more bizarre, if you can believe it, on there. And this is what I mean. So these Mormons, they saw these creatures, kind of let them be at first, didn't exactly do anything in terms of interacting with them. Just like anything else, they're just creatures. They were just walking by, and so probably they were just left as is. But one Mormon who was curious, obviously very, very curious about the uniqueness of this creature, decided to follow the trail that these creatures were living. And thankfully, good for them, good for this Mormon, because if not, then we wouldn't hear about the very unique behavior associated with the Funeral Mountain Terrashot. So the Mormon followed it, and it led it to an area, like a range, that is in those mountains. So apparently these creatures all colonize in one place, much like a herd of cattle would, or a herd of deer, or even a herd of elephants. I mean, they all just congregate into one area on there. And so he saw these animals, saw them essentially do what they do, eat whatever on there, and then all of a sudden they seemed to form a line on their own. And when that happened, suddenly they started making a march of sorts, like they wanted to go to a particular destination. So this Mormon followed them again, and followed them for a while. Didn't say how long he was following them based on the length of this particular trek. It seemed like it was very, very abnormal because, again, the area here, the Funeral Range Mountains, it is presumably very, very hot. This is a desert-like area, and if it's something having to do with the summertime, where there's no water, no trees, no shade, just pure barren land and mountainscapes on there, anybody would think that these creatures just suddenly deciding to go on a very long trek in this arid, in this very, very hot temperature-like setting would be very, very bizarre. But they did that. These creatures did that. And so the Mormon would follow them. And they kept following them on there, knowing that this can't go on too long, because these creatures apparently at that time, I mean, it's almost like they went knowingly on a suicide type of trek, and it turned out that it was a suicide trek, because here's what happened next. So these creatures would march, and they would just keep walking and walking and walking, and then finally, after presumably walking for days as is, it would kind of tip over and die. But that's not the last part of it. Whenever they would die, they would essentially explode. They would blow up, is what the Mormon described it as saying. They would actually blow up. So once they're on their final death rattle of sorts, they would keel over, and then their body that they have would actually blow up, and they would leave quote-unquote deep grave-shaped holes in the sand. So again, one of the most bizarre, unique, very original cryptids that I've ever heard. Here you have these cryptids that are, again, shaped like a casket, minding their own business. Mormon got bit by the curious bug and followed them around for a while. Saw them just living as normal animals in any kind of area. And then all of a sudden, they decided, you know what, it's kind of time for a death march. And so they would march and continue marching in this sunny, blazingly hot weather, and knowing that they would just march as is on like a suicide march. And then when they couldn't take any more, one by one, they would just keel over and die, and then they would just blow up. that's it. I mean, that's actually happened. If you follow again anything involving cryptids, anything involving monsters, with regards to these stories, I mean, some of it may not be true, but at the same time, I mean, people would report these for a reason because they saw this. There's always a grain of truth involving any kind of story, and so to think that something like this, something so unique with regards to a cryptid like this, is actually out there or was out there in this world. Again, it makes me so happy to report this stuff here on my video channel. So, has anyone else heard this particular story of this tall tale-like story of the Funeral Mountain Terrashots? Anybody in that area, in the funeral range, that happens to live near those mountains? If you've heard about these particular cryptids and wanted to share about them, please post your comments, share them below. By far one of the most original ones. And when it comes to these unique tall tale-like cryptids that I've seen out there. And again, check out the Slide Rock Bolter as soon as you finish watching this, because if you like this particular cryptid, then you'll love the other one as well, and vice versa. So again, very, very bizarre cryptid. Nothing in terms of it being harmful to any humans, nothing in terms of it having any kind of malice. Apparently it's just like any other, for lack of a better word, cattle. It just lived, and it ate, and then it marched, and then it died. I mean, that's as simple as it was with regards to this cryptid. It's too bad that there weren't other reports associated with this cryptid from anyone else other than these Mormon travelers, and in particular this one Mormon who decided to chronicle them on there. Otherwise, it would have been very fascinating to hear several different takes from other people out there. But again, if anyone knows anything else regarding this cryptid, please share them below. As always, makes me wonder that it is probably a good assumption why this cryptid is no longer found, because it's probably extinct, considering its very bizarre behavior of going on these death marches. The fact that if you do it enough times, eventually you will not have any of these cryptids living anymore at all. So probably that's why we don't see or hear anything involving them anymore. So, alright, thanks again everybody. Take care.